In March 1922, in a remote Bavarian farmstead, 6 people were murdered. A father, a mother, their adult daughter, her 2 young children, and the family's maid, who had only started the job that very day. The bodies weren't found for 4 days, but here's what makes this case unlike any other murder in history. The killer didn't run. After slaughtering an entire family, they stayed. They fed the livestock, they lit the fires, they ate the food, they slept in the beds. For 3 days, a murderer lived quietly among the bodies of their victims, and not a single person noticed. 100 years later, no one has ever been charged. But what investigators found when they finally arrived at that farm will make you question everything you think you know about how evil hides in plain sight. The Gruber Farm, known locally as Hinterkaifeck, sat on the edge of a dense Bavarian forest, about 70 kilometers north of Munich. It was 1922. Germany was in economic freefall after World War I. Inflation was spiraling. Rural communities were isolated, and the Gruber family kept very much to themselves. Andreas Gruber, 63, was the patriarch, hard, suspicious, known in the village for having a violent temper and almost no friends. His wife, Casilia, was 72. Their widowed daughter, Victoria Gabriel, lived with them, along with her 2 children, 7-year-old Casilia and 2-year-old Josef. The 6th victim was Maria Baumgartner, the new maid, who had arrived at the farm just hours before the killings. What the village also knew, but rarely spoke about, was this. Andreas Gruber had been telling neighbors something deeply unsettling in the weeks before the murders. Someone had been in the house. He'd found footprints in the snow leading from the forest to the farm, but none leading back. He'd heard footsteps in the attic at night. Tools had gone missing from the shed and reappeared days later. A strange newspaper had turned up at the farm, from a town no one in the family had ever visited. Andreas Gruber was frightened. And Andreas Gruber was not the kind of man who frightened easily. He told his neighbors. He asked them to come and look. He wanted answers. Nobody came. On the evening of Friday, the 31st of March, 1922, someone lured the Gruber family, one by one, into the barn. Andreas first, then Casilia, then Victoria, then little Casilia. Each was struck from behind with a mattock, an agricultural tool like a heavy pickaxe. The blows were deliberate, controlled, not frenzied. This was not someone who panicked. They then walked into the farmhouse and killed Josef in his cot. Maria Baumgartner, who had arrived that very morning and had never met the family before, was found in her bedroom. She never made it to the end of her first day. 6 people, 1 weapon. No witnesses, no screams heard by anyone outside. Then, nothing. The farm continued to function. Smoke rose from the chimney each morning. The cattle were fed. The family's neighbor, Lorenz Schlittenbauer, later stated he had driven past the farm during this period and everything appeared normal. It was only when the post didn't come, when neighbors noticed the family hadn't been seen at church, that a letter had gone uncollected, that anyone investigated. On April 4th, 4 days after the murders, a group of neighbors walked to the farm. They found the bodies stacked in the barn, covered with hay, as if someone had tidied up after themselves. The farmhouse fire was still warm. There was fresh food on the table. Police interviewed over 100 people. They identified several suspects. The first, Lorenz Schlittenbauer. Schlittenbauer was the neighbor who helped discover the bodies, and he was also the man many locals believed was the father of Victoria's youngest child, Joseph. He had a financial dispute with Andreas Gruber. He had motive. He had access. And here's the detail that investigators couldn't let go. Schlittenbauer led the group into the barn. He walked directly to where the bodies were hidden under the hay, in a vast, dark barn, without hesitating, without searching. He knew exactly where to look. He was never charged. He died in 1941. The case had never been solved. In 2007, criminology students at Augsburg University reopened the case as an academic project. They spent months reconstructing the crime. Their conclusion was unexpected. The evidence most consistently pointed to someone inside the family circle. Someone trusted. Someone who would not have raised alarm moving freely through the house. The layout of the bodies, the absence of any forced entry, the way the killer appeared to know the farmstead intimately, all of it suggested insider knowledge. A third theory, a drifter. The years after World War I saw thousands of displaced men roaming Germany's countryside. Some investigators believed the killer was a stranger who had been hiding in the attic, the same footsteps Andreas had been hearing, watching the family, learning their routines, waiting. This theory would explain one chilling detail. In young Cecilia's diary, written in the days before she died, she described hearing strange noises at night and feeling like someone was watching her. She was 7 years old. Here is what haunts investigators most. If the killer arrived from outside, how did they know the layout of the barn so precisely? How did they overpower a strong, physically capable man like Andreas without any signs of a struggle? And if the killer was someone the family knew, why did they then stay? Why risk it? Why feed the cattle? Why light the fires? Why behave for 3 days as if they lived there? One theory, they wanted to be discovered, or they had nowhere to go. Another, the hiding in the attic had been going on for weeks. When the murders happened, leaving immediately would have looked suspicious to those who had seen them near the farm. So they stayed, blended in, and slipped away when the time was right. No murder weapon was ever recovered. No DNA existed from this era. No one was ever arrested. The case remains officially open in Germany to this day. What the Hinterkaifeck murders expose is something deeply uncomfortable about how we respond to fear. Andreas Gruber spent weeks telling everyone something was wrong. He had physical evidence, footprints, missing tools, a stranger's newspaper. He was asking for help, and everyone dismissed him. This pattern of warnings that go unheeded, of danger that hides in plain sight, of communities that look away, appears in almost every major unsolved case. The lesson, if there is one, take unexplained things seriously, not with panic, but with attention. Because the most dangerous thing about this case wasn't the killer. It was the silence that surrounded them. If you want to go deeper on this case, I've linked the full Augsburg University criminology report and the most detailed English-language documentary below. Both are worth your time. And if you found this video worth watching, subscribing takes 2 seconds. It genuinely helps this channel keep making content like this. Next week, the Isdal woman. A charred body found in a Norwegian valley in 1970. No fingerprints, every label cut from her clothes, 14 aliases, and a theory that connects her to Cold War espionage. I'll see you there.